Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone. Have you ever noticed how being strong feels safer, but being honest feels terrifying? Today, you'll understand why and what it's been costing you. Have you ever felt that tight knot in your chest when you even think about being honest with someone or showing the part of yourself you usually hide? That feeling, that shiver of fear, is your mind trying to protect you. From a very young age, we learn that certain truths, our feelings, our thoughts, our desires, were risky to show. Maybe a word, a look, or a reaction once made us feel small, unworthy, or unseen. And over time, we internalize the message, hiding parts of yourself keeps you safe. But the truth is, it doesn't. It only keeps you small. The fear beneath vulnerability is not about the act itself. It's about what we imagine could happen if others truly saw us. Our brains whisper warnings about rejection, about being judged, about being misunderstood. And because the human mind is wired to avoid pain, these warnings feel real. They feel urgent. And so we tighten, we shrink, we armor ourselves in silence. We convince ourselves that what we feel is too much, too raw, too risky to share. But in reality, it is only in sharing these truths gently, deliberately, and honestly that we begin to connect with the world around us in a way that feels real and sustaining. Think about the moments in your life when you held back, stayed quiet, or avoided being seen. Maybe it was in your work, in a relationship, or even with a friend who might have understood you. The cost of hiding is not immediately obvious, but it's profound. When we choose to remain unseen, we sacrifice authenticity. We sacrifice the chance to be fully known, and in turn, we sacrifice the joy and freedom that come from living aligned with who we truly are. This fear, the fear that vulnerability is dangerous, is not a flaw. It is part of being human. Recognizing it is the first step toward understanding yourself. The next step is noticing when it arises. When you feel the urge to shut down, pause. Ask yourself quietly, what am I afraid will happen if I let this out? Who am I afraid won't accept me? Naming the fear brings it into the light. And once it is in the light, it loses some of its power. Begin with small acts. Speak a truth in a safe space. Share a thought you usually hide. Even in minor ways, you train yourself to tolerate discomfort and realize that showing up does not equal catastrophe. It equals courage. And courage, in turn, opens the door to connection, growth, and freedom, the things that hiding was never able to give you. Remember this, what scares you most about being seen is also the very thing that will set you free. We spend so much of our lives building walls around ourselves, carefully stacking bricks of control, perfection, and distraction, believing that these walls will protect us. Yet the truth is that the very walls we construct are often what keep us from feeling truly alive. They shield us from the discomfort of being seen, but they also shield us from connection, from love, from understanding, and even from our own inner wisdom. The armor we put on feels necessary because it seems safer to hide, to pretend, to hold back pieces of ourselves rather than risk being exposed. But armor, no matter how shiny or strong, comes at a cost we rarely notice until we pause and look inward. Think about the ways you've armored yourself. Maybe it looks like constantly agreeing with others to avoid conflict. Maybe it's hiding your feelings, suppressing your desires, or putting on a mask that fits the world's expectations. Maybe it's refusing to ask for help even when you desperately need it because needing help feels like weakness. Perhaps it's laughing when your heart wants to cry or smiling when inside you feel hollow. All these acts of self-protection are, in essence, strategies born from fear. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough, and while they may protect you in moments of vulnerability, over time they begin to define who you are. Not the person you truly are, but the version the world thinks is safe to see. We forget sometimes that hiding isn't neutral. It doesn't just block pain, it blocks joy, intimacy, and meaning. The irony of armor is that it keeps both danger and beauty at a distance. Every time we resist showing who we truly are, even in small ways, we reinforce the belief that our authentic self is unacceptable. And over time, this belief can become a lens through which we view the world and ourselves. Suddenly, we are no longer just protecting ourselves from others' judgment. We are judging ourselves harshly for wanting to be seen, for needing connection, for desiring to live openly and honestly. The inner critic grows louder, whispering that to show vulnerability is to risk humiliation, disappointment, or failure. And yet, there is a quiet truth that armor cannot erase. The longing to be known, to be seen, and to be loved for who we really are is relentless. It pulses beneath the surface of our guarded hearts, sometimes faintly, sometimes with overwhelming urgency. No amount of shielding can erase that need. The question is not whether we will face vulnerability. It is when, how, and with whom we will allow it to happen. The challenge is in recognizing that the very thing we fear, the exposure, the potential judgment, the discomfort, is also the doorway to living fully, to connecting deeply, to feeling alive in a way that hiding never permits. The first step toward letting go of armor is awareness. Begin noticing the moments you feel the urge to pull back, to say less, to avoid the gaze of others. Notice the physical sensations, the tightening in your chest, the sudden tension in your shoulders, the way your stomach sinks when you contemplate sharing a truth. These sensations are signals, not warnings. They are invitations to explore why we are resisting. Ask yourself, what am I trying to protect? What do I fear will happen if I allow myself to be seen? Be honest with yourself, even if the answers are uncomfortable. Sometimes we are afraid of being rejected by others. Sometimes we're afraid of rejecting ourselves if we allow our true feelings to surface. And sometimes we are afraid of being changed by the very act of revealing ourselves. Understanding the fear is not the same as succumbing to it. On the contrary, understanding it gives you choice. Once you recognize the armor, you can decide whether to keep it in place or slowly, deliberately begin to loosen it. This is not a sudden transformation. Vulnerability is rarely a dramatic leap. It is a series of small, intentional steps. It might mean sharing one thought you usually keep to yourself, admitting a mistake, or expressing a feeling you usually hide. It might mean asking for what you need, or saying no when you usually say yes. Each act, no matter how small, chips away at the walls and allows a little more of your authentic self to breathe. Another important truth is that vulnerability is not the same as oversharing. It is not about telling everyone everything or exposing every part of your life for validation. Vulnerability is intentional. It is knowing what you need, discerning who is safe to share it with, and offering your truth in a way that aligns with your values and integrity. It is measured courage, not reckless abandon. By practicing this form of courage, you gradually learn that being seen does not always lead to harm. In fact, being seen often leads to connection, empathy, and understanding, the very things we have been guarding ourselves against for so long. It is also essential to recognize the role of self-compassion in dismantling armor. When we attempt vulnerability for the first time or after years of hiding, fear is inevitable. There may be moments of regret, embarrassment, or discomfort. That is normal. Treat yourself with the same kindness you would offer a loved one stepping into a brave, uncertain situation. Speak gently to yourself, reminding yourself that courage is a skill, not a personality trait. Each time you choose openness over hiding, you are practicing a muscle that strengthens with use. The more you exercise it, the more natural it becomes to allow yourself to be known. There is a profound freedom that comes when we begin to let go of armor. Life becomes less about managing impressions and more about experiencing reality fully. You notice your own desires, feelings, and intuition more clearly. Your relationships shift, sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically, as people respond to your authenticity. Those who resonate with your true self draw closer. Those who cannot accept it may drift away. And while that can be painful, it is also a form of liberation. You no longer bend to fit a mold that was never yours. You begin to live according to your own truths. And that space, courage, joy, and meaning start to grow in ways you may never have imagined while hiding behind walls. So start small. Choose one area where you have been armored and experiment with openness. Speak one truth, share one feeling, express one need. Notice how your body reacts, how your mind responds, and how others respond. Reflect on the courage it took to do so. Each small act is a declaration: I am worthy of being seen. I am strong enough to face discomfort. I am capable of living without the crutch of fear. Over time, these small acts accumulate. The walls you built brick by brick may not disappear overnight, but they become less rigid, less confining, and the spaces in between the bricks allow light, connection, and authenticity to flow in. Remember, the armor never made you safe. It only made you smaller. Vulnerability, practiced with intention, allows you to reclaim the fullness of your life. The discomfort you feel when opening up is temporary. The freedom, growth, and depth you gain from allowing yourself to be known are enduring. Every step toward vulnerability is a step toward wholeness. Every small act of courage whispers, I am here, I am enough, I am willing to be seen. Courage is not the absence of fear, it never has been. The moments we call brave, the moments we admire in others are rarely free of doubt, anxiety, or uncertainty. In fact, courage begins precisely where fear begins, where discomfort rises, and where the urge to retreat feels strongest. It is not a loud or dramatic declaration. More often, it is quiet, steady, and persistent. Courage is the choice to show up, to speak, or to act, even when you are unsure of the outcome, even when your heart races and your mind whispers all the reasons to stay hidden. Think about the times in your own life when you have faced a difficult conversation, a risky decision, or a personal truth. Recall the nervous anticipation, the second guessing, the what ifs that played like a soundtrack in your mind. That tension is the birth of courage. It is an internal signal letting you know that something important is at stake, that the potential reward is significant, and that your authentic self is asking to be seen. Yet so often, we mistake this tension for weakness, panic, or inadequacy. We tell ourselves we are not ready, that the timing is wrong, that we should wait for certainty that will never come. The truth is, there is never a perfect moment to be courageous. Life does not hand out guarantees, and waiting for safety often leads to paralysis. Every time we wait for certainty, we delay the possibility of transformation. The paradox of courage is that it grows in discomfort. Each step taken despite fear strengthens the very muscle we need to face future challenges. Courage is learned, practiced, and refined. It is less about innate bravery and more about deliberate action in the presence of uncertainty. When you examine your own fears, you may notice that they are often imagined scenarios rather than present realities. We fear judgment that may never come. We fear rejection that may never happen. We fear failure as if it is a permanent mark rather than a temporary experience from which growth can emerge. These fears can feel enormous, overwhelming, and urgent, but they are in many ways stories we tell ourselves, stories that our minds have rehearsed to protect us from imagined harm. Courage is not the eradication of these stories, it is the willingness to act in spite of them. The act of courage often requires vulnerability because to be brave is to expose yourself in some way. It may mean sharing a truth with someone you care about, admitting you were wrong, asking for what you need, or stepping into a role that challenges your comfort zone. Each act carries the risk of discomfort, embarrassment, or even failure. But courage also carries the potential for connection, clarity, growth, and self-respect. Without the risk, there is no reward. Without exposure, there is no authenticity. Without showing up, the world never sees the real you, and you deny yourself the satisfaction of living fully. It is important to recognize that courage is cumulative. It is not a single heroic act that defines you, but the small choices you make consistently. Saying one uncomfortable truth, asserting one boundary, expressing one suppressed emotion. These are all exercises in courage. They may feel insignificant in the moment, but their effects ripple outward. Each act of bravery builds confidence, strengthens self-trust, and diminishes the grip of fear. Over time, what once felt terrifying becomes manageable, and what once felt impossible becomes a natural part of your life. Fear may never completely disappear, but it changes in the presence of courage. Instead of paralyzing you, it becomes a guide, signaling where growth is possible. The tightness in your chest, the quickened heartbeat, the trembling voice. These are not signs of weakness. They are evidence that you are stepping into something meaningful. Fear is the indicator. Courage is the choice. And the alignment of the two is where transformation begins. Practicing courage also requires self-compassion. As you attempt to act bravely, there will be mistakes, missteps, and moments where you falter. This is natural. Courage is not flawless. It is imperfect, messy, and sometimes frightening. Speak to yourself with kindness during these moments. Remind yourself that effort matters more than perfection, and that showing up, even partially, is still an act of profound bravery. Celebrate your attempts, reflect on your experiences, and use them to strengthen your resolve. The most transformative courage is often internal before it becomes external. It is the willingness to face your own truths, confront uncomfortable feelings, and acknowledge your desires without judgment. This internal courage allows you to live with authenticity, to act in alignment with your values, and to engage with the world on your own terms. It is the quiet, persistent force that sustains all outward acts of bravery, giving them depth, meaning, and purpose. Courage is also contagious. When you step forward despite fear, others witness your bravery, even if only subconsciously. You inspire them to confront their own hesitations, to speak their truths, to take their own small steps toward authenticity. One act of courage can ripple through relationships, families, workplaces, and communities, creating a culture where vulnerability is valued and fear does not dictate the course of life. Begin with small, intentional acts of courage today. Speak a truth that has lingered in your heart. Set a boundary you've avoided. Try something that intimidates you, even in a minor way. Notice the internal resistance and still move forward. Each act will remind you that courage is not a destination. It is a practice, a daily commitment, a quiet rebellion against the instinct to hide. Remember this, courage is not about being fearless. It is about being willing to feel fear and act anyway. It is about trusting that the discomfort you encounter is temporary and the growth it produces is enduring. Every time you choose courage over retreat, you prove to yourself that you are stronger, wiser, and more capable than your fear would have you believe. And in this way, courage is not just an action, it becomes a way of life, a lens through which the world can finally see the real you. Change is never easy. It often comes quietly, creeping into our lives in small shifts we barely notice until suddenly nothing feels the same. It can arrive as a whisper of doubt, a gnawing discomfort, or a sudden realization that something in our lives no longer fits. And yet, despite the difficulty, change is essential. Without it, we remain trapped in patterns, routines, and relationships that no longer serve us. We stay confined in the familiar, clinging to the illusion of safety while the life we long to live waits patiently for us on the other side of fear. When we choose vulnerability, we begin to confront change, whether we like it or not. To be open, honest, and authentic is to challenge the status quo of our own lives. It means recognizing the ways we have compromised ourselves, the ways we have silenced our hearts, and the habits that have kept us small. Change in this context is not about doing more or working harder or forcing transformation overnight. It is about alignment, allowing our actions, our words, and our presence to reflect who we truly are, even if it makes the world uncomfortable. One of the hardest parts of change is facing the unknown. We fear what we cannot control, and we fear what we cannot predict. This fear is deeply human. It whispers that our decisions may backfire, that we might lose people we love, or that life as we know it will collapse. And in a way, all of these fears are valid. Change does carry risk, but the alternative, the slow erosion of authenticity, the quiet resignation to mediocrity, the numbing comfort of hiding, carries an even greater cost. The cost is the life unlived, the potential unfulfilled, and the self we never allowed to emerge. The turning point in change is often subtle. It is not a dramatic world-shattering event, but a quiet internal recognition that something must shift. It may begin with a simple observation, noticing the exhaustion of living behind walls, the emptiness of going through the motions, or the pain of unspoken words. It may begin with a small act of defiance against old patterns, a choice to speak honestly, to leave a situation that no longer serves you, or to pursue a desire that has been quietly growing inside. Each of these moments, though small, signals the beginning of transformation. Change requires courage because it demands that we confront discomfort head on. It asks us to sit with uncertainty, to tolerate awkwardness, and to accept that the world may respond unpredictably. It asks us to risk disappointment, frustration, and even loss. But it also promises reward, clarity, freedom, and alignment with our deepest truths. Change is the bridge between vulnerability and growth. Without it, the courage we cultivate remains unused, the truths we have spoken remain incomplete, and the life we imagine remains just out of reach. It is important to recognize that change is rarely linear. There will be moments of progress and moments of retreat. You may take a bold step forward and then feel the pull of old habits drawing you back. You may embrace a new boundary only to question yourself the next day. This is normal. Change is not perfection, it is persistence. It is a commitment to continue moving toward authenticity. Even when the path is uncertain, uncomfortable, or slow, each effort matters, even when it feels small or insignificant. Each moment of alignment with your truth chips away at the patterns that no longer serve you. Another aspect of change is release. To change is to let go of old beliefs, outdated habits, and relationships that no longer support your growth. Release is not about abandonment. It is about prioritizing what aligns with your values, what nurtures your spirit, and what allows you to thrive. Letting go may feel painful because it often involves saying goodbye to the familiar, even if it was limiting. But it is in this space of release that transformation becomes possible. By making room for what is authentic, meaningful, and true, you invite new possibilities into your life. Opportunities that were blocked by fear, hesitation, or self-protection. The process of change is also deeply personal. It cannot be rushed or forced by external expectations. No one can do it for you. It is a path walked alone, yet it is also a path illuminated by the choices and courage of those who have gone before you. Watching someone else live authentically, take risks, and embrace discomfort can serve as a mirror reminding you that what feels dangerous is also achievable. But ultimately, the journey of change requires your own willingness to step forward, to experiment, to stumble, and to rise again. Small, intentional steps make the journey manageable. Start with one change that feels meaningful but not overwhelming. Perhaps it is speaking an unspoken truth, setting a long-avoided boundary, or prioritizing your needs in a way that feels uncomfortable at first. Notice the feelings that arise, fear, doubt, resistance, and allow them to exist without judgment. Each small step reinforces the possibility of transformation, reminding you that courage and vulnerability are not just concepts but lived experiences. In the end, the power of change lies in its ability to reveal what has been hidden within you. It illuminates your values, clarifies your desires, and strengthens your sense of self. Change exposes the parts of you that have been silenced, giving them a voice. It disrupts the patterns that keep you small, allowing growth, authenticity, and connection to flourish. And perhaps most importantly, change demonstrates that the life you imagine, one of courage, freedom, and alignment, is not a distant dream, but a reality waiting for your commitment. Change is never without challenge, but it is never without reward. When you step into it deliberately, with awareness, courage, and self-compassion, you discover that the discomfort is temporary and the transformation is enduring. Each act of openness, each boundary set, each truth spoken is a brick in the foundation of a life lived fully. The walls we once built to protect ourselves may crumble, but what rises in their place is far stronger. A self that is whole, resilient, and aligned with what matters most. So take a breath and look at the areas of your life that are ready for change. Ask yourself honestly what you need to release, what patterns you need to challenge, and where your courage can take you next. Remember that discomfort is a sign of growth, not failure. Each step, no matter how small, moves you closer to living authentically, fully, and courageously. Change is not just an external shift. It is the unfolding of your own potential, the emergence of your true self, and the invitation to live a life that finally feels like yours. Growth is not a sudden arrival. It is not an event, a certificate, or a moment you can point to on a timeline. Growth is a quiet, persistent unfolding, a subtle reshaping of your thoughts, your choices, and your sense of self. It is the result of countless small decisions, small acts of courage, and small moments of honesty that accumulate over time, until one day you realize you are no longer who you once were. You have moved beyond fear, beyond hiding, beyond self-doubt, and you are beginning to inhabit your life in a way that is deeply aligned with your values and your truth. The path to growth is paved with vulnerability. Every time you risk being seen, you stretch the boundaries of your comfort and create room for expansion. Growth is born when you lean into the discomfort of being authentic, when you choose connection over isolation, honesty over pretense, and action over inaction. It is not easy. Growth demands persistence, reflection, and sometimes heartbreak. It asks that you confront your shadows, that you acknowledge the parts of yourself that are fragile, unsure, or afraid. Yet it also reveals the parts of yourself that are resilient, capable, and unshakably strong. One of the most profound realizations in growth is understanding that setbacks are not failures. Each time you stumble, each time fear or doubt causes hesitation, you are not falling behind. You are learning, adapting, and cultivating resilience. Growth is less about perfection and more about persistence. It is about showing up for yourself consistently, even when it is uncomfortable or inconvenient. It is about noticing your patterns, acknowledging your limits, and then gently pushing past them, one step at a time. The smallest steps, taken with intention, lead to the largest transformations. Growth also reshapes your relationships. As you become more authentic, you begin to attract connections that resonate with your truth and release those that no longer serve your well-being. Some relationships may deepen in ways you never imagined, filled with trust, empathy, and mutual respect. Others may drift away, and while that can be painful, it is also necessary. Growth cannot coexist with stagnation. To grow, you must allow the space for new energy, new perspectives, and new experiences to enter your life. It is not about forcing change on others, but about aligning your world with your evolving self. A key aspect of growth is learning to honor your own voice. When we hide or shrink, we silence ourselves. When we allow ourselves to be seen, we begin to reclaim the power of our own perspective. Growth comes when you listen to your inner wisdom, when you trust your instincts, and when you give yourself permission to pursue what feels meaningful. This may involve making choices that others do not. Understand, taking risks that feel intimidating or walking away from situations that no longer align with your values. In each act, you reinforce the truth that your life is yours to live and that your authenticity matters more than external approval. Growth is also deeply tied to self-compassion. The more you expand, the more you will encounter moments where you wish you had done differently, moments where your old fears or habits resurface, moments of frustration or regret. In these moments, treating yourself with kindness is essential. Growth is not linear, and self-compassion is the thread that allows you to keep moving forward without being undone by your own imperfections. Celebrate your efforts, acknowledge your progress, and treat your journey as a living, evolving process rather than a fixed goal. As you continue to grow, you begin to notice subtle but profound changes in how you experience life. Challenges feel less overwhelming because you have practiced resilience. Discomfort no longer signals danger, but opportunity. You approach relationships with more empathy, clarity, and courage. You feel more at home in your own skin because you have allowed yourself to be fully seen, fully known, and fully accepted by yourself. Growth transforms not only how you live, but also how you perceive yourself and the world. The culmination of growth is freedom. The freedom to act from authenticity rather than fear, the freedom to express yourself without apology, and the freedom to pursue what fulfills you without hesitation. This freedom is not granted by circumstances or external approval. It is cultivated within through intentional vulnerability, courageous choices, and deliberate change. It is the reward of having faced fear and chosen authenticity repeatedly, and it is accessible to anyone willing to walk the path of self-awareness and courage. Growth is also a gift that extends beyond yourself. As you embody courage, vulnerability, and authenticity, you inspire others to do the same. Your willingness to show up fully encourages those around you to examine their own lives, confront their fears, and embrace their own paths of growth. Transformation is contagious, not because you demand it, but because your life becomes evidence of what is possible. Each act of courage and authenticity ripples outward, quietly influencing the world in ways you may never fully see, but that are deeply meaningful. Ultimately, growth is a testament to the human spirit. It is proof that we are capable of transformation, that we can overcome fear, shame, and self-doubt, and that we can build lives rooted in authenticity, purpose, and love. Every act of vulnerability, every courageous choice, and every moment of alignment with your truth is a building block of growth. Together, they form a life that is rich, resilient, and deeply fulfilling. So look at yourself now. Notice the distance you have traveled from the person who first feared being seen. Recognize the courage it has taken to arrive here, and acknowledge the potential yet ahead. Growth is not finished. It is ongoing, infinite, and available to you at every moment. Each day presents new opportunities to act authentically, to embrace discomfort, and to expand into the fullness of your potential. Step forward with awareness, intention, and compassion, and watch how your life transforms. Not because the world has changed, but because you have chosen to be fully present, fully vulnerable, and fully alive. Remember this: the strength, freedom, and resilience you seek have been within you all along. Growth is the unfolding of what has been waiting inside, the realization of your capacity to face fear, embrace change, and live courageously. Every choice you make in alignment with your truth, every act of vulnerability, and every moment of bravery is a step toward the life you were always meant to live.